Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are still waiting for others that will be joining us, but to honor and say thanks for all of you for being here on time and ready to go. Let's start. My first name is Punam. Let me just spend a minute on that. It's Punam. Vowels and consonants, admittedly, you've never seen strung together before. So let me just say, there's nothing you can do that's going to surprise me or hurt my feelings. It is an honor to be a lucky electron around the nucleus that is the community of Tucson. So I've been engaged as a facilitator to simply ride shotgun, sidecar, so I guess my role is as facilitator and cheerleader. So let me first honor the intention of a community to say, what do we want to be? And how do we make sure that everyone has voice in that conversation? That's really what we're here to do. And so to kick us off, leadership matters and tone from the top matters as well. And with your mayor and council, you have a group of citizens, servants who are really motivated to make sure the community engagement sort of characterizes how they show up in the world. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the pride of Ward 3, I believe. Councilman Durham, could you kick us off, sir?
Thank you for taking the time to engage in this process. Your input into the future of the Central Business District is important. Regardless of where you live, your participation is key, as this is about the future of Tucson. The Central Business District is the heart of the city's historic core, and you can help to further prioritize our strategies by ensuring that it remains vibrant and attractive for all who live, work, and play here. Thank you again for investing your time and energy in this conversation, and be sure to encourage your friends, neighbors, and colleagues to do the same.
Maestro, you are magnificent. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. So he said it all. So let me first just point out that we are recording the session. And I promise it isn't to run TikTok or Instagram snippets. It is to make sure that we don't miss anything in our less than perfect note taking. And so that's the reason for that. Let me first answer the why we're here, right? Just to do a little contextual setting. So the CBD, the Central Business District, which was first adopted in 2012, was renewed by the mayor and council in September for an additional 10 years. Sometime this spring, we anticipate February and March timeframe, the mayor and council will determine the future of that CBD. They will explore its potential expansion. And if they decide to expand it, what its future boundaries may be. And based on that, they will also determine how best to use the G-Plat as a tool and a process to accomplish what we as a community want for that CBD. Following the council's renewal of that CBD in September, they made a decision to undertake a very energetic outreach effort to encourage the community to provide input, exactly what the councilman just said to us. And that's really what brings us here together. So that's the why. So now let me address the how. How do we hope to accomplish this mission that we've been given of maximum community engagement throughout this entire process? So first answer to that is 7 virtual community engagement sessions. And we are all making some history together because this is the first one. So let me just quickly, as an aside, thank you in advance for your patience and your grace as we all discover together what we can do better for the next one. But today marks the first of 7 community convenings. They're scheduled between today through January the 23rd. Easy to sign up and register, as you all did on the website. Tell your friends and neighbors that how easy it is and encourage them to do it too. A key component of every one of the engagement sessions will be completion of a 9-question survey. So today we're going to do that together. This survey is critical because it provides collective input from hopefully as large a number of people as we possibly can engage to the mayor and council. So beyond the community sessions where that survey will be complete, that survey is also going to be available on the city's website in both English and Spanish. It will also be available in paper copies for those that don't like or don't have access to technology. So there are paper copies that are available in English and Spanish, accessible through every ward office, through the city. And then finally, the survey will appear in the major daily paper so that if I see it and I have a desire to to express my voice, that's another way in which we can hopefully inspire people to complete the survey. The goal is simple, is to encourage as many residents as we can to complete the survey so that the council, the mayor and council, have the benefit of hearing from as many people as is possible. I mean, in a perfect world, our aspirational dream would be 530,000 voices in the conversation. Like, wouldn't that be amazing? But if we can get somewhere to that number, that would be equally amazing. So we need your help. So let me start with a quick call to action. We need your help to do that. The councilman mentioned it. Between now and the end of this month, please tell your friends and neighbors, your colleagues, as he said, to complete the survey through whichever channel is most convenient. Access it through the city's website, get it through ward office, look for it in the newspaper. You can print it out and share it with your neighbors. In addition, because you're participating today, tomorrow, you'll receive an email from the city giving you an opportunity to share additional comments or questions. Often we have additional thoughts as we sleep on stuff, as we reflect on an experience. So after the experience that we shared today, you may have additional insights. Tomorrow there'll be an email giving you an opportunity to express additional comments, pose additional questions. That email will also allow you to receive ongoing updates as we journey together through this process. And so we invite you to please sign up for that so that you can be, so we can just start journey together through the entire process. Finally, on the website, the city is creating a master Q&A document, questions and answers. And the thinking here is that curiosity expressed by one can benefit everyone. And so any questions that are submitted through that website are going to end up in a master Q&A so that any curiosity expressed by one Tucsonian can be beneficial to all. So we want to encourage everyone to post questions, share comments through that email communication that will be in your inbox tomorrow. So we've talked about the why, some of the how. By the end of January, so after community convenings, big all-out plea for people to complete the survey, by the end of January, the mayor and council will review the results from all of the community convening, the 7 sessions, from all of the surveys that we received, from all of the Q&A that is submitted, and all of that information will be so useful to them in informing their discussion about potential modification of the CBD boundaries, and equally importantly, the role that the GPLET process can play in sort of creating the desired result. Based on the consensus direction from the council, by the end of February, we think staff will then prepare a modified CBD boundary map and a GPLET application and policy for their consideration. Ultimately, we think February, March timeframe, the mayor and council consider adoption of those proposed changes. So hopefully I've been coherent in explaining the why and the how, and they made sense. So now let's zoom down a little bit into today. We've got 3 goals for the 90 minutes that we're going to share together. One, feels important always to sort of have a shared understanding of what we're talking about. And in this case, we're very specifically talking about a CBD, the Central Business District, and the GPLET. So we want to make sure that we provide sort of a shared, just level set, right? And so there will be a presentation to sort of give you some sense of where it's been, what it's done, what it is. Second, we've got a couple of short activities because I think as citizens and residents, it's okay and important, frankly, to sit back once in a while and say, what's our vision? What do we want in our home? What do we want for our community? What do we aspire to be? So we're going to have an activity where we're going to probe into what do we envision for our home and our community in 2030. And then we're also going to get a little bit curious about what challenges we believe are in our way. What are the speed bumps? What are the obstacles that will potentially need to be managed by us as a community to get us from where we are to where we aspire to be? And then third, on the agenda today, we're going to focus on that CBD, the GPLET, hopefully to capture your thoughts, your perspectives, your desires, your priorities, your fears by completing together that 9-question survey. And the nice part about doing the survey in the context of a session where we're all present is that we can actually have some discussion as we go through that process. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what's in store for the next 90 minutes. A couple of pinky promises. I guess the fancier way to say it was a few agreements that I'd like to just offer up for the day is vigor and brevity. So we will monitor the chat room at all times. So anything that comes up, please feel free to put it in the chat. For those of you that aren't Zooming as a way of life now, the chat is accessible on the bottom of your screen in a little bubble that says chat. So if you pull that out, anything in there, we're going to be really conscientious about monitoring what you put in there. And then we would ask that keep yourself on mute because it can create audio kerfuffle if we're unmuted. So if you could please keep yourself on mute and then use the function at the bottom. There's a box that says reactions, and that gives you the opportunity to do a hand raise. So I've just done mine. You can hopefully by my head see my little hand raised saying that I want to say something. If you raise your hand, we will do our level best to get to you. Fair enough? And that's it. So there's one really awesome feature of what you as a community are doing that I will tell you, I work with many other governments that I've never seen before. It's a very special and innovative feature that I think embodies the intention of the mayor and council in really sincerely reaching out for community engagement. And this feature of this community engagement effort are actually three human beings, three really special individuals that we are referring to as bridge builders. So literally, they're not constructing architecture over water. Their bridge building is to do just that, to build bridges of engagement throughout this entire process. Again, our aspirational desire would be 530,000 Tucsonians fill out the survey, right? So we've got build bridges. All three of these special people are rooted in the community. They are longtime residents, and they're well versed in the topics at hand, which I think make them uniquely qualified to help ensure maximum diversity, maximum participation, maximum engagement through this entire community engagement process. They will also have a role in assisting with the preparation of recommendations that ultimately will be presented in advance for consideration by the mayor and the council at the end of this process. So I'd like each of them to say hello and to quickly just introduce themselves. So I'll let them sort of figure out who goes first, second, third. Actually, Corky, I'm looking at you. Do you want to lead us off, sir?
Oh, unmute Corky.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Corky Poster. I'm an architect and planner, and I've been doing that in Tucson for, embarrassingly, 47 years. I've done neighborhood planning in every neighborhood from the Elvira neighborhood on the deep south side to Flowing Wells on the north side, and pretty much every neighborhood in between. My practice also includes a career of about 4,600 units of affordable housing in Tucson. And I'm here really to try to help out. My goal is to be a resource for this conversation and also to ask some probing questions to get the conversation moving along. We are, all three of us, in kind of independent voices in this process, hopefully to help it come to a good conclusion. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
And the resemblance to Santa is simply serendipity. We just got extra lucky. Corky, thank you. Thank you for bringing all 47 years of experience to the table. Who wants to go next? Frankie, Shay?
Yeah, I'll go. Hi, my name is Sharia Jimenez. I'm a local small business owner here, a Southside resident. I also own a home in Ward 3 and used to live there as well. So I know all the areas we're talking about pretty well. I also have a background in design and yeah, I'm just really involved in the community. I sit on the Housing Commission for both the county and the city as well.
And Shay, just quick question. How long has your family had roots in Tucson?
Yeah, we've been here for 5 generations. And my family had actually a home in Eloyo that was destroyed during urban renewal. So again, I understand a lot of the fears that the community has when it comes to planning and these big processes and how they impact communities.
Yeah, super grateful to have you. Welcome.
Well, thank you for
Frankie.
being a resident of Ward 3.
Oh, look who's trying to take credit for her now. Look at that. Did you all see that?
Yeah, I love Ward 3. Ward 3 is amazing.
It is amazing. We'll give you that. Absolutely. Frankie, hi.
Good evening, everyone. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Frankie Villegas. I run the Women's Business Center. My background is in micro lending and helping small businesses, especially in South Tucson. I'm here to help and be a point of contact for all the legacy businesses. So I'm happy to be here and thank you for the invitation.
Great. And so these are the three bridge builders, and I've never seen another community be bold enough or innovative enough, frankly, to include bridge builders. And what is really awesome is that their role on the team is not to be rubber stampers. Their role on the team is not to be nodding heads. Their role on the team is to bring the best of what they've got and to say the things that otherwise may not be said if it was only staff or only some group that didn't have direct, fully involved from stem to stern. And so I just want to applaud all of you, frankly, because to go and do things that have never been done is the best way to achieve results that have never been achieved, right? And so good for you. And now, Councilman, did you want to try to take credit for Ward 3 for that too? Or are we gonna, just want to make sure we're honoring the theme.
Yes.
He's gonna, yes, he is. Okay, moving on. So the next thing. in the agenda-
Punam, I
Yes.
thought real quickly, because I think we also have Pima County Supervisor Adelita Grijalva on the meeting. So I just wanted to give a shout out and say thanks for her attendance tonight.
Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your attendance. Shout out given. And if we did it all at once, it would be a raucous mess. So I hope the intention gets expressed without us having to do it literally for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Happy to be here.
Yeah, honored.
It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces and some I didn't know. And I just sent an email to Shariah. So I'm like, hey, it's good to see your face. I just sent you an email.
Yes, I want to continue my term, so thank you.
Excellent. Great. I was just asking if she wanted to stay on her term.
Look at that. We're getting
Thanks.
business done as well. This is
See,
how we
we're
roll.
multitasking. Thank you.
And I tell you what, this is a spectacular. There are 50 of us on this call right now. This is the first of 7 community sessions. We had absolutely no idea. A few days ago, we had 38 people who had registered, and we were feeling pretty good about that because it is an extraordinary thing for citizens to say, yes, I care. And not only do I care, but I care enough to commit 90 minutes of my time on an evening when I've got a whole bunch of other things that I could be doing with that time. So I just want to say thank you to all of you that have already exceeded expectations in terms of what community engagement in Tucson looks like. So as an outsider, good for you is what I would say. So one of the things that we talked about was just level setting and getting a briefing for all of you, an update on what is the CBD. So let's do that because it's important for all of us to have a shared understanding, right? So we've asked 2 people to kind of tag team and walk us through some background on the Central Business District, the what it is, the what's been happening there up until this point. And there are 2 that know this inside out and backwards. First is Barbara Coffey, Director of Economic Initiatives, and Corin Manning, Planning Administrator at Planning and Development Services. So with that, I'll let the dynamic duo take it.
All right. Okay, I'm going to set up a couple slides. Images are always great storytellers. So this is a great way for you to see a little bit of the impact that that we have seen through the program. So let's start. Thank you, Punam, and thank you again, Councilman Durham, and all that are in attendance tonight. What a fantastic showing. So Central Business District is something that the state of Arizona allows us to create. Your local governing body establishes the Central Business District, and you can see here in the map the existing Tucson Central Business District. And our area was created back before 2012, and so has an interesting shape, whereas you might find our neighbors in the Phoenix metro area, places like Mesa and Gilbert, far more rectangular shapes, but we were grandfathered in. We are enabled to expand up to 2.5% of the total land area of the city, but that is the maximum allowable area by statute. And it was created in accordance with state statutes and met all the criteria. On September 22nd, just last year, Mayor and Council did renew the existing Central Business District. So again, the opportunity inside the Central Business District is to be able to utilize at least one program, which is what we call the GPLET, the Government Property Lease Excise Tax Program. And it allows the city to encourage reinvestment in the area where you may see development or redevelopment of real property, and allows an 8-year property tax abatement for those projects. And what I want to share with you is sort of where we've been in terms of the programs, the projects that you've seen in the program since 2013. We've had 23 projects that have received the 8-year abatement. And just to give you a sense of what that looks like and a magnitude of the properties included in all those 23 projects before the project was developed on its site, totaled in all about $40 million. And when estimated, we go through a process where we look at the economic impact that those projects would have and would continue to bring year after year. And the post-GPLET value totals in those estimates were well over $220 million for those projects. And when we did a look in just this last year in 2020, what we discovered was that assessed valuation on property tax rolls for those projects, and not including the 6 not yet assessed, because there's a few that have not been constructed yet, but just been approved, but in total have already more than doubled in value on the property tax rolls. And so, you know, we're seeing the results of what's required, which is 100% valuation increase when a project is developed in this manner and eligible for its 8-year tax abatement in the Central Business District. So again, just some numbers to give you kind of the status update, and we did share this with council late last year as well. All but 5 of those 23 projects, again, have been completed and received their C of O. All but 3, so basically you're talking about 20 projects developed by local developers, local firms and entities. And then all but 1, really, there's just one outlier that's still quite not at its 100% valuation. It's at 93%, and we continue to see those the growth year after year. So we expect that to change quickly. And then if you look at what it's helped us accomplish, when we develop, we're talking about converting underutilized parcels, underdeveloped parcels or abandoned parcels, vacant buildings, these kinds of things. So 8 parking lots were converted, 5 vacant buildings were activated in the projects that we've been engaged in, the 23 that I mentioned. 5 of those were projects that rehabilitated or preserved historic buildings. 1 of those developed on a vacant lot. And I just want to point out that none of the projects are developed in such a way that they are replacing single family residential. So here's some really good images. I like to get to the pictures because it really does speak volumes about what has occurred. This is an example of a parking lot that was and soon became the Trinity office project. And so again, really exciting opportunity, one of also an environmentally sustainable office project. So pretty exciting to see this come to fruition just in the last year. So they're working hard to lease space and create office environment there. This you may recognize as a former Motel 6 property that was certainly in deterioration and decline. And just last July, the Tucson Boutique Hotel opened up in the middle of a pandemic. Imagine that, a new hotel for the community, and certainly a reinvigorated spot in terms of what you saw in the before picture. And this may be one that you also know a little bit about. This was the First Baptist Church school building, actually, at one point, and it became very quickly, upon its renovation, the new home for the Mr. Car Wash headquarters. So again, an opportunity to preserve an historic building and put some new use into it and create something that is very much contributing to the fabric of the downtown area. Another project, again, more recent, you notice the iconic, this is our tallest skyscraper in Tucson, our tallest building in Tucson, the skyscraper I like to call it. And it had the lot next to it, you see on the hard corner was the site of a very small park and open space there, waiting for its opportunity. Just this past year, the Rendezvous Urban Flats opened up, and with this magnificent design brought a lot of color into the community, but more than that, brought about, well, 100 residential units to this project. And, you know, I like to think about these residential projects as ways that do also reinvigorate the surrounding areas in which they sit, because you've got now a 24/7 community that lives on site that is certainly adding to the customer base for all of those small businesses that are right around it. So another exciting project for us. So with that, I want to let Corin Manning with our Planning and Development Services team share a little bit more about the things that they have been able to accomplish through the work of the Infill Incentive District and other programs. So Corin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. It looks like I'm not able to share my screen.
Give that a try again. Oops. Do you have the share screen option?
Okay. Can folks see my screen?
Nope.
Click on your presentation and see if we can get it. Should be able to. There we go. Success is coming.
Looking very
Thank you.
promising. There it is.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. Again, I'm Corin Manning with the City of Tucson Planning and Development Services Department. And I want to also just fill in a little bit about some of the tools that we use to support more sustainable infill development. Because I think it's important to keep in mind that the GPLET is one tool, but it's not something that works in isolation, and nor was it designed to. The CBD and the GPLET were tools that were put in place along with a host of other tools to support infill development. And really all of these pieces kind of depend on one another to really work. And many of these policies were put in place around the time Barbara mentioned. She mentioned that the Central Business District was first adopted in 2012. Many of you were probably even very involved in these conversations, but if you think back in 2012, our city had just begun construction on a new streetcar, planning that had been in the works for many years. So there was a really deliberate intent to support more infill development in our downtown. We were also in the midst of an economic recession. We'd just seen a housing collapse in our city and a housing boom before that, that really mostly affected the edges of our city, where we saw a ton of housing being developed. But we hadn't really seen much development in our urban core for many years. So around that time, we had just gotten funding for a streetcar. And so the city, in response to the vision from the community for really restoring our urban core and focusing investment in our urban core, also put in place zoning regulations to support that type of development, as well as financial incentives, including the Central Business District and the GPLET, as well as other tools. So Rio Nuevo also is a really important factor in supporting infill development in terms of the financial incentives. So all of these pieces really work together. And I think it's important to keep in mind that no one factor is the only driver of development and growth in our downtown area. Also want to mention that the Infill Incentive District that I'm going to touch on, many of the projects that utilize the GPLET also go through the Infill Incentive District. So there's sometimes a bit of confusion about what these two programs, what each really does, what the purview is. So I just want to provide a little bit of information about the Infill Incentive District, the goals and the purpose and how it works, and share a few examples. So the Infill Incentive District is an optional zoning overlay. Zoning is what controls what you can build on a site, the density, the height, the type of use. So this is optional zoning for downtown that property owners can choose to use, and it promotes more pedestrian and transit-oriented development in downtown. These projects also must meet design standards and comply with historic regulations to preserve the historic fabric of downtown. This was also established by Mayor and Council in 2010, and we've seen modifications over time. It's grown, we've changed regulations as we fine tune things and want to be responsive to current needs. So there was actually some changes made just in 2019 by Mayor and Council, and we continue to make changes over time. The goals of the Infill Incentive District are really to strengthen downtown's role as a central business district and entertainment district, to promote sustainable infill development and support more pedestrian-friendly and transit-oriented neighborhoods, as well as protecting historic structures and neighborhoods. So this is a map of the Infill Incentive District. This might look pretty similar to the map of the Central Business District. There's a lot of overlap. They cover a lot of the same areas. They both are focused on downtown and extend along a few commercial corridors. I want to emphasize that the Infill Incentive District, just like the Central Business District, does not include many residential neighborhoods. In fact, it intentionally excludes the residential core of the neighborhoods around downtown, many of which are historic neighborhoods. Also within the Infill Incentive District, there's 3 sub-districts, kind of the downtown area and then a few others outside of downtown, which recognize that there's a different character of our downtown. We have different goals for downtown. Higher density development is appropriate there, which may not be appropriate in other places a little further from downtown. So they're very tailored to the needs and conditions of different neighborhoods. So how it works is developments are able to utilize different regulations, different set of regulations if they use this option. Lower parking reduction, again, along with that goal of promoting more transit-oriented developments, these projects often need less parking than we would typically require because most people are using transit, walking or biking to these projects to where they live and work. Different setbacks, landscaping, density, those types of regulations. This allows the projects to utilize sites more efficiently. These are often smaller urban sites, more constrained, so they need to get creative with how to use these sites. There's also a requirement for public involvement. Any project that uses the Infill Incentive District has to hold a neighborhood meeting to get input from the community. There's also design standards that have to be met. These projects are reviewed by a design professional. Corky Poster, one of our bridge builders, is one of the design professionals for the city. So he's reviewed a lot of these projects and also actually helped develop these design standards for many parts of the IID. And this ensures that these projects are meeting specific design goals for the area, that they are pedestrian oriented, that they improve the streetscape, improve the downtown area, and that they're providing amenities like open space in certain areas and transitioning between different contexts and scales. I mentioned earlier that historic preservation is a key goal in the Infill Incentive District. So any project that includes a historic property, which we have many of in the downtown area, or could impact a historic resource, a historic building, those have to be reviewed by our City Historic Commission. So there's a lot of protections built in for our historic resources. So what has been the impact of the IID? There's been over 40 projects approved since it was adopted. And these projects together have facilitated over 1,500 housing units, many of which were affordable and senior housing, as well as over 500,000 square feet of new commercial office space or commercial space that includes offices, retail, and hotels. I also want to point out that more than half of these 40 projects are considered minor projects, as we call them in our code, which means they're usually a smaller scale project, often not new construction, just a rehab, adaptive reuse. So that's actually how this program has been most commonly utilized. That often is what allows some of our small businesses in the downtown area to remain in this area and grow their business. So some of the businesses that have used this include Cirrus Visual, Sand Reckoner, Time Market, Presta Coffee, and a lot of other small businesses. The number one thing that those small businesses often need is reduced parking reductions. That's one of the biggest challenges for infill development. And again, that's really what this is trying to promote, is more transit-oriented, walkable, bikeable development. So I want to provide a couple examples like Barbara did in visuals. And one thing I want to emphasize is that each individual project has an impact and, goes through the design review and is, we want to make sure it's really high quality for the city. And not just does every individual project have an impact, but together, the Infill Incentive District has created a more vibrant sense of place in a lot of parts of our downtown that previously did not have many active uses. So this corner is a prime example. You don't have to go back that far, 2011, when there was a surface parking lot at one of the most prominent intersections in downtown at Stone and Broadway. So you can see there was a surface parking lot. We had an office building that was getting a bit outdated, needed rehab. And next door was just a one-story office building. And if you look at this today, after 2 of these sites have been developed through the Infill Incentive District, we have a lot of new housing for downtown, as well as new commercial space and office. So the site you see on the left is the Westerner in West Point. That includes 50 units of affordable housing that was built on that one-story commercial site. And then the office building was reused, rehabbed, to preserve that historic character. You can see it's right on the streetcar. So this is adjacent to transit, great location for new housing. On the right, what you see is 1 West Broadway. That also is housing, 50 units of housing apartments with ground floor office space, the medical office for downtown. A few other examples kind of in this vicinity. The Marist, this is a beautiful development designed by Corky Poster. And this is 100% affordable senior housing, 75 units that just opened about 1.5 years ago. Again, right on the streetcar, really great location for seniors who wanna maybe drive less, take the streetcar. There's also, again, a medical office just next door. A lot of convenience to this location. The Rendezvous is a very recently completed project. Barbara mentioned it, and I just wanted to provide another angle because I think this really speaks to, literally another angle, because I think this project really speaks to not just the uses and density that the Infill Incentive District is going for, but really the placemaking. And I think this is what we're able to achieve through the design review process that is embedded in the IID. On the photo that Barbara showed, you could see this mural that I think is very well known here in Tucson, was on the corner. And through the design review process, we could make sure that that mural was preserved in the course of this project. So it was actually moved to the interior of the site, where we now have a really lovely new public space for downtown. There's a courtyard that cuts through the site, a pedestrian walkway with a courtyard in the interior where this mural is prominently featured. I also want to provide an example of those small businesses that I mentioned before. So this is Cirrus Visual. This is their site on Stone Avenue. And this is years ago before it was renovated. It was an auto use, which is, a local business, but they actually closed and this site was vacant for a short period. And then through the Infill Incentive District, Cirrus Visual was able to expand to this location, rehabbed the building and turned it into new offices. So this helped a small business stay in the downtown area and expand their footprint and improve a site at the same time. So those are some of the examples of the types of projects we've seen as a result of the Infill Incentive District. Many of these projects also use or all of these projects that I mentioned also use the GPLEX. So again, these two tools really work hand in hand, but have kind of a distinct role. Whereas the infill incentive districts regulates kind of the physical form and look of a project. The GPLET is what provides the financial tool and financial mechanism to make those projects possible. And with that, I will turn it back to Purnam.
That was awesome. Thank you for all of the energetic vigor. The vigor and brevity was what I asked for, and boom, the chat is filled with it. What's so exciting is that because this is our first time community convening, beginning the community engagement process, these questions are going to be seen in that master Q&A, so that the curiosity that you've been expressing, there've been great questions, then the answers will benefit the entire community. So thank you. Okay, ready to do a little work? Let's get some little work started here. So it's your turn. The first thing I want to do is just make sure everyone can access their chat. So pull it up down the bottom, hit chat so that you can see the little pop-up. So for this activity, we want to hear from everybody. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to give you a one-word response. Sorry about that, but with 530,000 residents, it could get crazy if everyone had a sentence or a paragraph or a thesis, right? But here's what I want you to think about. Just for a second, we're January 7th, 2021. Just time export yourself into 2030 or something that's a decade from now, right? That's what I want you to think about. Think about a decade from now. And here's the question. Thinking about what our community is going to be, what Tucson's going to be in 2030. In one word, which adjective would you like to claim as a description of that community in 2030? What will be true? Or asking in a different way, what's one word that you want to be true about our community in 2030? Asking it a different way, of all the things that Tucson could be for you, your family, your children, your grandkids, what's the one thing you want to deliver as a promise to those that'll be here 10 years from now? What is that in one word? And so I'm seeing some amazing words. If a word has been used, you're allowed to use it. You're the boss of your own adjective. Can I say that? So feel no pressure that you see it there already. But these are some, I'm going to call them delicious words. I see equitable a couple of times. That's great. So I see the word equitable 3 times. So I'm going to turn to someone who said equitable. Is it Adrienne? Is that how you pronounce it?
It's Adrian.
Adrian, would you mind just giving us a sentence to tell us what you mean when you say equitable?
Sure. I think that in 2030, I would like to see a lot of the things that other people said, a thriving and resilient community, but where people have not been displaced from the neighborhoods and homes and communities that they occupy currently, and where that thriving looks pretty similar across the board. That's more than one sentence. I'll cut it off.
No, that's super. So just to play it back, equitable means as promises are delivered, they're delivered equally to everybody.
Correct.
Okay, great.
And it also depends on the nature of the promises, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, that would be another community engagement process. Miranda, I'm going to turn to you because you two said equitable, and I saw you nodding.
Yeah, I feel like what Adrian said, was like pretty much hit the nail on the head for me. I think that what I've noticed around a lot of these discussions is that, people talk about economic health, but then I keep wondering, like, whose economic health, like who's thriving, and just everybody having an equal shot to thrive, and the system keeping everybody in mind.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. And then is it Tana? With a name like Punam, I don't.
Tana, thank you for
Tana,
asking.
Tana, sorry, you deserve to have your name pronounced properly, and I'm just gonna screw it up, so I apologize in advance.
I would,
Blanket apology.
thank you. Thank
So-
you. I would be on the screen, but it's a mess around here today. Yeah, absolutely agree with equitable. I feel like that has been such an important word for 2020, to really think about the inclusivity of your neighborhoods.
Yep.
and giving everybody a fair shake at what is possible, especially in this very unique community. So
Got it.
keeping it local and equitable is extremely important for Tucson.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So another theme that I'm seeing in here is the word affordable. So Sarah, I'm going to tap you and say, give us in a sentence an explanation of what you mean when you articulated affordable as.
Hi. Yes, I think that's something that is on everyone's mind in terms of the economy, is what can we afford? And I think the development should include a full range of affordability. And that goes along with the equitable thing too.
And so when you talk about, Sarah, when you talk about affordability, does that mean relative to housing, or is it also cost of recreational options? Is it ease of access to whatever offerings, restaurants?
Cost of living cost.
Cost of living, got it, okay. And then I saw it somewhere else. Allison, you had affordable as well. Do you want to give us a sentence or two explanation?
Sure. I agree with the affordable applying to the working family. I do believe that it's really hard to define, especially given the different ranges that we're experiencing right now with all the different hardships. However, generally speaking, it would be accessible for the average income in the average area based upon those demographics. So I don't believe that people should have to work more than a 40-hour work week and should have to rely on, 3 or 4 different incomes to be able to achieve a stable living situation.
No, I understand.
Obviously, affordable is going to be different for each person, but it should ideally accommodate the average.
Yeah, got it. So
Thank you.
I'm sorry, this is what happens when your eyes get old. You can fog up your screen. You got to get so close to it. I think it's Marla. And Marla, you're the only one whose word was commended by someone else in the chat. So the word that Marla, you shared was communal.
Yes.
And it so captivated Ryan that Ryan was like, great word. So I just want you to share a bit about what you mean, because it is a really intriguing word.
Yeah, thank you. I thought about communal because I think that, oftentimes there's ways in which, cities and business development gets designed where it's easy to go about your life independently. But I think that there are some elements and a value that undergirds the Tucson community that really values communal experiences and spaces. And I think that there's some intentionality to be given and to value in how things get thought out moving forward about creating intentional spaces that help facilitate that feeling.
Got it. Beautiful. So we've had some elves working in the background. So I'm going to check with the elves to see if they're ready. Barbara, are you ready?
Yes, I
Watch
am ready.
this, everybody. Watch this. So all of you offered words. The elves were very busy. That is the word cloud that summarizes what our communal vision is for our community. And so some of the words that we pulled out are the ones that you see because they were the ones that, but that's a pretty cool place. Like, I want to live there. It's diverse. It's equitable. It's vibrant, affordable. It's thriving. It's inclusive. It's uniquely Tucson. It's not some cut and paste version of something else. Welcoming, equal, interactive, interesting, sustainable, resilient. It has integrity, this place. We are unique. We are preserved. Yeah, that's gorgeous. So for what it's worth, there you are, right? It is important every once in a while to sort of sit back and just look over the horizon and say, what is it I'm aspiring to be? Because that creates a context in which I can consider what actions and decisions I make today. So the second half of that is the next question. So back to the chat you go. I'm still going to give you just one word because you did so well with that one word limitation that I now know you can deal with it well. So for this, it's a new question. So again, please write your single word answer in the chat. In a single word, what do you think is the biggest challenge we will face in achieving this amazing vision? I'm going to ask it several different ways. What's going to get in our way? What is it that we will have to, as a community, manage and muster through to achieve the promise of the vision that is really beautiful? What is that going to be? Yeah. So Adrian, I'm going to turn to you again, if you don't mind. Give me a sentence or two on scarcity mindset.
Yeah, and I think it probably, I probably shared it with the same spirit as the people that were saying profit and developers, things like that. I think that a huge, no, it's okay. I think a huge hindrance to actually equitable development, I love that you use the word integrity, to maintaining integrity in these efforts is a scarcity mindset that kind of goes hand in hand with neoliberal expansion. It's the mindset that we have to focus on attracting the highest wage earners or the most profitable developments before we can focus on uplifting the rest of the community. And from my particular scope and mindset and belief system, I think that we can achieve that resilience and that thriving by doing exactly the opposite. And I would love to see Tucson be able to grow and prevent a situation like I saw when I was living for 12 years in Portland through its biggest development phase, where that scarcity mindset was embraced and those particular groups I was talking about were not actually included, and equity was not achieved. And now people are priced out of that city that helped to make it, you know, the great, quirky, wonderful, sustainable place that it is, or it was.
Okay, thank you. I see it, I think I hear it using different words, right? I think a lot of what you said, correct me if anyone sees this differently, but when I see the word greed, it's a sort of a zero sum, right? We can't have winners if we accept losers, right? The idea is to elevate everyone, right? Which goes back to some of the aspiration that we have is about that equity that is going to be a DNA of what our community is going to be. I mean, I think that's really important because ultimately you've got the opportunity to say, here are the things that we're going to measure. And the things that we measure is what we care about, right? And so if in the past, and so I think that's rich input for our elected leaders, for the mayor and the council. Let me see, educational attainment. Vanessa, give me a sentence or two on what you mean by that. How's that a barrier? Vanessa? Did she just put a thing in the chat and then run? I don't think so.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
So what I was thinking about that is how our growing population in P through 12 is Latino, Hispanic, Latinx. And in thinking about that, during the pandemic, about 50,000 students dropped off from that P through 12. So if we're thinking about, you know, they've just disappeared, they dropped off, they're nowhere to be found in our educational system. So in thinking about the greatest predictor of educational attainment and also increasing income, social mobility, there's a high correlation there. So that's what I was thinking about as far as being one of the biggest challenges, especially here in Tucson, Arizona, where our population is about 44% Latino.
Yeah, no, got it. Okay. And then there were a couple of you that had the word division. And so I'd love either one of you. Elvira, I see it from you. Dwayne, I saw it from you. That's not a math thing. That's a community segments warring against each other thing. Am I correct?
For me, it was. I used the word division. I really appreciated the word greed. I think that I was going to say that, and I wanted to diversify the words. But I think it, for me, I think one of the concerns is like the separate lives that various people live in Tucson, right? Like there are people who have one experience, who are wealthy and can experience like all the maybe improvements that we make to our community, and people who are still super underserved. So, and apart from that, obviously division between people of color and racism and white supremacy in our community, and overall just political differences not allowing us to come together to make a decision that benefits all of us and is equitable.
I got it.
That was my side.
Yeah, that's gonna be rich input for the mayor and council. Because I think based on your vision, that would be a non-negotiable, like can't happen. Okay, how's our elves doing? Chief elf would be Barbara.
All right, coming up.
Oh, can we have a ta-da or a drum roll, or I don't know what the Zoom equivalent of either of those things are, but there you go. That's beautiful. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Let's see, scarcity mindset, climate stress, balance, income inequality, fear, funding, closed-mindedness, corporate welfare, defensiveness, transparency, developers, water, inequity, profit, parochialism, support for small businesses, putting working families first, lack of consideration for values, differing economic theories, government support, educational attainment, lack of honesty, integrity. Yeah, okay, so we've got a word cloud that represents a vision, and all of this is going to be shared as part of the funnel of input with the mayor and council, right? So what we're saying is, look, here's what we dream of and imagine and believe we want our community to be, and here's the things that we are eyes wide open and realistic are going to get in our way. And so what do enlightened communities do? They say we're going to stay focused on what it is that we want to achieve, and are going to be really honest and work through the stuff that we got to first acknowledge exists as a problem so that we can solve them as problems, right? Because all too often we can get focused on the benefits and then sort of ignore the challenges, which simply makes things worse, right? I mean, the inequities that exist in our communities didn't happen, last Tuesday. It's taken us decades to get really good at being this unfair, right? That's another way to say it. So good job. I don't know what the Zoom equivalent of a standing ovation is, because we can't stand up. It'd be awkward. We'd be looking at each other's bellies, but let's do this. Yeah, why not? Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Now we're going to turn to the survey, which is a 9-question survey. So here's how it's going to work. We have a test question. Everyone's going to see a pop-up with the question come up one at a time. There's 9 of them, one question at a time. You will answer your own answer. At this point, everything is anonymous in this survey, so we won't see who answered what. Once you click your answer, your submit button will turn red. You hit the submit button. After the majority of us on the call have answered, we will then together see the total response. So first question, just as a dry run, take it. Let's put up our first question, please. Boom. See, it's just a test question. So please answer the question. Once you click your selection, your submit box should get red. You hit red. It's that easy. And then that's also a timed test. That one should have been pretty easy. And then as soon as it's done, Barbara, whenever you're ready, show us the response. Oh my Lord, who is that one person who's not breathing or thought it would be even funnier to answer the question with no? So look to your left, look to your right. If there's someone who clearly needs help, do something. I don't know what else to say. So that's how the questions are answered, right? So now let's get on to who is not breathing? Who said no, they weren't breathing? I now feel like a responsibility to check in on them and just make sure they're okay. Okay, no one's gonna say.
I'm
No,
all right, Poonam. I was holding my breath.
that was Kevin. Of course, that's Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. Glad you're okay. Next question. So here's the first question. For real? Here it comes in the box. How long have you lived in Tucson? Easy. So let's see the longevity represented among the 52 of us on this call. And Barbara's going to bring that up. Yeah, there wasn't anything for 5 generations, Shay, because otherwise you would have been there. So here's what's interesting is look at the longevity, right? 30, there's a lot of longevity. This is unusual in a community to have 50 random people in a community conversation and have almost half have 30 years of time in. That's amazing. That's amazing. So you care deeply is what that means, and what a wonderful thing for the mayor and the council to know. All right, next question, please. This is yes, here we go. Do you live within the existing CBD, the existing central business district? And again, remember that this survey is going to be hopefully completed by as many of the 530,000 residents as we can get to. So that's why those kinds of questions are super important. And let's see the frequency among the 51 of us. Okay, so 20%, 1 in 5 of you do. The vast majority of you do not, and 1 of you doesn't know. Gives us some, okay, next question is this. What brings you to the central business district or to downtown Tucson at all? And I will say to you, if there's something that should be on the list that you don't see on the list, that is your primary reason for visiting, we'd love to hear that too. So this is based on sort of everything everyone on the team knew, thought, brainstormed, believed. And then as soon as there's a majority of you having responded, all right, let's see what we've got. So we knew that 20% of you live there. So that's those of you that go home every day. Almost half of you work there. That's interesting. Single most common, actually you've got 4 reasons that are pretty all close together. Entertainment seems to be a reason that prompts many of us to go there, but not far behind is we love to eat and drink. So it's part of the sort of recreation, extends to shopping and to the enjoyment of public spaces, murals, arts, public space, walkable areas. That's actually interesting. It ties back to the comment made about communal. So clearly there's communal benefit that people are deriving out of visiting the CBD existing. Is anyone surprised by what you see here at all? Anything that stands out as surprising that made you go, huh? Or does this all sort of align with, and then is there anything that was missing? Is there sort of some reason that you frequent it that you didn't see represented on this list at all? Good, that means the team did a really good job at imagining, researching, thinking, brainstorming.
There was one comment in the chat about transit connection, which is a great point because it's one of our biggest transit hubs.
Ah, okay. Okay, so I think if the team is in agreement that we will talk about how we can add that to the survey. Okay, super. Then the next question.
And there's also a comment to say none of the above, to recognize some people do not visit downtown.
Good catch. Good catch. That seems wise, especially as we contemplate taking it to 530,000 people. Good, thank you. Okay, next question. The streetcar's influence on downtown Tucson has been purely your view, your personal view, very positive, somewhat positive, neutral, somewhat negative, very negative. Listen, for those of you that are putting these very cool things into the chat, thank you. Okay, as soon as we've got a response to that, let's see how we. Let's see what we get. So that is pretty evenly spread, right? Somewhat positive. So if I take very positive and somewhat positive, which normally you would, that's half. But then neutral is a quarter. And negative, somewhat negative or very negative is another quarter. All right, that's just interesting information to have. Okay, next question, please. Now we know, because you've heard it a lot, that the city council, the mayor and council have declared affordable and workforce housing as key priorities for them, right? And for the community. So which statement best reflects your opinion of that priority? So the question is not, do you think it should be a priority? Because they've already declared that it is for them a significant priority. What they're curious about here is, what do you think about that? Once we've got the responses up. Okay, so I would say, councilman, keep going. Keep going, keep pushing really hard. 3 out of 4 of us really want you to be wildly successful in remaining focused on and succeeding in affordable housing and workforce housing. And of course, based on the earlier conversation, when we say that, we mean it with equity, equitable access, so that promise is one that's delivered to everybody. That's what I just heard in this conversation. Okay, next question, please. So in addition to affordable and workforce housing, what other types of investment do you believe should be a key priority for the city council, for the mayor and the city council in the downtown area? So they've already declared that that's their first priority. You've already confirmed that you wholeheartedly agree that that should be their number 1 priority. What should be second on the list? Second, third, fourth? And once we have our responses, that may take a little longer because it's we want to be thoughtful. Okay, there's a very strong 1-2 breakout here. So renovation and reuse of existing buildings is the number one, closely followed by safer streets and better connectivity. So for those of you, clearly almost 3 and 4 of you answered one of those two. So for a couple of you that feel really strongly about that, can you give us a sentence or two to explain why you feel as strongly as you do? First on renovation and reuse of existing buildings. Who felt that strongly? Unmute yourself and please share that. Because see, at this point, I can't call on you because I don't know who said what.
I'll just say that there are just, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Tana. I just think we have so many beautiful old buildings that really should be preserved, and keeping that lovely Tucson tradition, the architectural history. I think it's really important to keep those spaces with the flavor of Tucson.
So it is about, for you, about honoring the cultural continuity as opposed to recycling drywall.
I mean, I would also say reusing just for the for the climate and for the environment, absolutely, but also to keep the preservation of
it is that cultural. Yeah, it is the dignifying.
So both, absolutely both. Thank you for clarifying that.
Got it. No, that's great. And Corky, were you going to say something?
I was going to say exactly what she said. So.
Oh, well then don't bother because she already said it.
Okay.
It would have been great. I know it would have been great. Maria, I see you. Or is it Marla?
Marla. Yes. I think for me, I'm actually originally from Southern California, having moved here almost 8 years ago. And for me, I think that was kind of an aspect, a visual aspect of my transition experience to the Tucson area. I think, the number of kind of like vacant lots and abandoned buildings, and it almost kind of gave a bit of a feel that you could just kind of like, it exudes a vibe in some sense, right? About, I think when things are occupied and cared for, there's a feel of vibrancy.
Yeah.
And so, to kind of see, a lot of vacant lots and a lot of abandoned buildings, especially when I first, came here, it kind of sends a vibe. And I think it's counter to what we all expressed and described as wanting.
Okay. So for you, it's about energy. This is also, it's sort of the conveyance of energy, that if we renovate and keep vibrant what we currently have,
yes,
then it is about all the other stuff and sort of conveying a sense of community and energy and vibrancy, rather than this is old, we demolish it and we start brand new, or we just leave it vacant.
Yes.
And work around it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
But I want to hear from someone who said safer streets and better connectivity. Tell me why that one was so compelling to you.
Yeah, I think safer streets and better connectivity allows for the community to make use of the resources available downtown. And I think without safer streets and connectivity, it could be a ghost town. But I think they are critical to communities making use of resources.
Good, thank you, thank you. Anyone else who also checked that? I mean, clearly 2/3 of you did.
I think it's also kind of ties into the equity piece too, because
That's what I was going to say.
All different, like it costs a lot to have a car, and so honoring that transportation, public transportation and other modes, walking and biking, provide more access to folks and let everyone use where the city is investing its resources. And so I think that access, providing that access and safely is key. And safe, just pure safety and health too, as far as having more active transportation.
And listen, to places that are safe and welcoming are going to be far more interesting to me than places that are not, right? Especially with families or, generations up and down all the way. Okay, great. Is there anything that was surprising about this to anybody? This answer, the answer, this specific answer? Okay, so clearly, from the council's perspective, here's what is sort of being conveyed pretty loudly is that the top 3 priorities, you are very emphatically in agreement with affordable housing, workforce housing, as that's their highest priority, and then you would give them a top 2 and 3. So it would be a 3-topic list that you would say, yeah, affordable housing, and let's really be conscientious about renovating and honoring existing space and existing buildings. And then let's make sure that that then becomes a safe place where everyone can have equal access. So those are the kind of the things that lunge off the page, or the chat box, I guess is the answer. Okay, next question, please. So that was question number 7. We've got 2 more. Here we go. What areas around the downtown area should the city council focus on for investment? And so these are very specific.
Just FYI, I see a little mistake in the residential rental and parking. Those items were not supposed to be in this poll, so.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
That's
little,
the fun of doing it for the first time. You're like, oh, look at that.
A little typo issue. So just focus on those areas that you see. Miracle Mile, the 05 is one. North 4th Avenue, Downtown Links is another. Congress and Broadway is another. I-10 frontage. Then west of I-10 Mercado, South 6th Avenue, 5 Points, and then South Park, Millville. So apologies there.
All right, let's see what we got. Oh, all right. You have some real strength. So almost 7 in 10, more than 2/3 said Miracle Mile, the 05, followed by half that said the I-10 frontage. 3rd looks like South 6th Avenue, 5 Points. And then a couple of you actually said, I don't care that residential rental and parking are typos. I'm going to pick it anyway, which is adorable. Okay, for those of you that said Miracle Mile, the 05, I'd love to hear from 1 or 2 of you to tell us why. Why was that your number 1?
Oh, I'm going to speak up here. This is Mike, and I live in the 05, and I am excited and passionate about the Thrive in the 05 program. So that's part of it. I was surprised that it's as popular as it is. I don't know enough about the area, about the history. I'm really curious. I'm looking forward to some people filling me in later about this. But because I was surprised that this area was chosen at 69%. I expected some other area to come up.
Well, I'm excited for you, Mike, because I can hear your excitement, actually. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Anyone else select that?
This is Dawn.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi. Yeah, I selected it as well because I've been recently tasked to work on the properties on Grant and the freeway that the Pasco Yaqui tribe owns. And it's just been a fun experience. And actually, we did research into the building and the facility. And we found out that the architect is very famous that did the theater, that built the movie theater. And so to me, like the last 2 questions kind of went together when it said about renovation. And it's just really interesting finding the history. And there's so much there. My tribe has, was originally in that area. We call it Old Pascua, and there's a lot of history and there's a lot of beauty there that that hasn't been explored in a long time. And I think that it can be beneficial, you know, to work at that area and make it a much better place for everybody. So I think there's a lot of potential.
It's beautiful. I get excited as I hear you describe what you're learning, actually. Thank you. So several of you also picked I-10 frontage. So give us a sense as to why that area felt important to you, please.
I drive by the frontage road every day, and it's nice to see like Tucson and some of the Hotel McCoy, some of the renovations, and this effort to preserve. It's almost like it's back to what it's up. I can imagine what it looked like before it was kind of run down. And there's a lot of really kind of ugly, dangerous properties there. A lot of vandalism and vacant, you know, structures, or you have a hotel a motel really, that half of it is being utilized and the other half is sort of, everyone ignores it, but it's really a draw for a lot of, it's just not necessarily a safe environment. So trying to figure out a way to renovate that, to look at that being possibly low income housing. Like there's just a lot of really, I think, great opportunities to combine retail and other things there. And really the only time that I see a real effort in keeping that area safe is when we have the gem show. And all of a sudden we have a ton of law enforcement and everyone out there trying to pretty it up to make sure our guests feel comfortable. But then when they leave, the rest of us are sort of like, okay, back to the way it was. So that's why I wanted to focus on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I just realized what time it is. We've got 9 minutes. We got one last question. So thank you. And then if we could get the last question up. And here it is. Last question. What types of community benefits should accompany GPLET assisted development projects in the Central Business District? I guess another way to ask this question is, you know, the GPLET becomes a tool. So if you've got a tool, you can leverage use of it. So from your standpoint, how would you like to see the mayor and council leverage use of the tool? What benefits would you like to see? And when we've got the answer, let's see what we have. Small and local business job creation, number one, by a little, almost 3/4, and then we go down to 62%, which is really close to 59%. So those are increased attainable housing options, environmental sustainability. Sorry, the number 2 was historic preservation and adaptive reuse. Yeah, there in this group of 50, you have a very strong, you were very consistent, right? In the things that you were valuing, which is terrific. Anyone surprised by anything they see in this answer? Although part of what we see is that there is desire expressed in every answer. If you think back to some of the others, we had some responses where we had 78% over here and only 5%, right? There is desire to maximize benefits for the community is part of what I hear in this. And clearly job creation, helping each other, making sure there's equity and who has access to these jobs. All of that ties to the vision as well. So that makes sense. That would be the number 1. And then, you know, Tucson is unbelievably one of the strongest assets that you have is the history, the cultural diversity, the depth and the vibrancy of all of that is so much a part of your history. And so I love the priority to embrace it and have it be part of what defines your future. not every community in the country. I live in Las Vegas. That's where I am right now. You know, we were born 8 minutes ago, so everything is 8 minutes old. And when it gets to 10 minutes old, we blow it up and we start again. There is no 5 generations of anything. There aren't. We just don't have the richness, right? And so when I see communities that have it, I'm like, oh, lucky for them. And so it's wonderful that you honor it because it is a real asset. Anyone have anything that surprises them in this or represents an aha for them in this?
Well, this is Joe. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm not surprised by any of the answers. I'm really interested in the question. When we talk about GPLETs and the CBD, we're talking about what kind of projects we incentivize. And some of the things on there, I don't think are appropriate to say, well, these should be accompanied by a GPLET. Environmental sustainability should be something we're demanding of projects regardless of whether in the CBD, regardless of whether they're getting a GPLET. That should be a baseline that doesn't have to do with us incentivizing a project. We shouldn't have to say, you guys don't get to not pay property tax if you're getting environmental sustainability. And I think that's true of historic preservation and adaptive reuse. I think that's true of open space. I think that's true of contributing to transit and parking. I think those are all things that shouldn't need to accompany a GPLET. And I think a lot of the talk around GPLETs have also been linked to community benefits agreements. And it's appeared to me that one of the things the city really wants to do with GPLETs is say, hey, here's a menu of things that would be community benefits. And the developer can pick 2 or 3 of these that they want. And then once they've checked off those boxes, they can get a GPLET incentive. And different communities are going to have different needs. And I think the community benefit agreement process really brings to the forefront the community involvement and tailoring what's needed to a specific area. The needs of a project that's in Dunbar Spring aren't going to be the same as something on South 6th. So letting a developer choose those, I think is a problem for a lot of us. And picking these options and saying in general, what should accompany GPLET assisted development projects is kind of a little bit broad. Thank you.
A little bit what?
A little bit broad. Because different projects are going to be best accompanied by different benefits.
Yeah, Joe, you are absolutely right. And it is by design, I will tell you, a little bit broad. And let me explain the sort of the theory of action or the thinking behind it. That when you describe the difference between 2 very specific projects and what would be true for each of the projects, that is a level of granularity that it can only be addressed when we've got a project, right? At this phase, here's where we are, is in seeking broad guidance as a community. So the objective here is to get broad direction from as many residents as we can to inform the mayor and council about the things that matter the most to you, the how it will happen, what the implementation, the execution is going to be. All of that still remains to be dealt with, right? But without sort of the broad, sort of shared broad priorities, it becomes difficult to go to the next level and figure out how you're going to accomplish it, whether that's a function of the GPLET or that's a function of just everything that Tucson does. Like those are very specific on the ground decisions that will need to get made. I would observe not at this stage of the community engagement process. So that's by design, right? Not to frustrate folks, because I completely agree. I mean, it would be so much easier to say, let's give you, here are 4 different projects, you pick the best one. But that's so far down the road. And what the mayor and council are looking for right now is what are the sensibilities? What are the shared priorities? What are the strong views that our community has? That's what they're looking for. So it's by design, it's broad.
I kind of, building off of that, I guess one thing would be helpful, as we close out, and maybe this is part of the plan of discussing what to expect in the next few interviews, meetings. And so I'm sure that's going to come. I think kind of piggybacking off what you're saying and what Joe brought up is that while I think I understand that there's really project-specific concerns that we could get into, but then over the last few months and like especially kudos to the folks that have been pushing on this front for many, many years. I think also there are core things to the CBD and to the GPLET tool and just development incentives generally that are actually very broad issues that are concerns to the community. So looking at just what is the vision and what do we want to see as outcomes if these tools are used is, I agree, very important, and I'm very grateful that these are the conversations that are happening, but also having those conversations about the concerns about what these tools do. And I think, for example, just the shifting of the cities and in counties, in certain cases, reliance towards more sales tax revenue versus property tax. I mean, we still see this year how volatile relying on sales tax can be, and how that can impact what our communities can be investing in. And so and that's like one snippet, I think, but having those bigger conversations about what we're getting and what we're sacrificing with this is a big, broad question that I would hope that we address going forward.
You said that very elegantly, and I hope someday you're going to run for office. That was awesome. Are you like 5 generations of Tucson as well? It's just mind-blowing to me that we've got generations of Tucsonians. Do you have first generation? Okay, well, that's more than I got in the community in which I live. So thank you for that, and for the perfect segue. It is we're already in 1 minute of overtime, and we're actually not paying overtime, so I need to wrap this up. Let me tell you what happens next. So where to from here, right? Tomorrow, because you were attendees and participants, and let me extra special thank you for taking the time to do that. Because you were here today, you're going to receive an email from the city. There will be additional opportunity for comments, reflections, questions that may emerge between the time that we finish up and when you get that email tomorrow. Please, please, please express it. Just express it. Ask the question, share the comment, whatever it is, right? Any of the questions will help create that community-wide FAQ. So remember, your curiosity can benefit everyone else. So please don't, please share your curiosity because it will benefit everyone. We want those questions. Secondly, I strongly encourage you, or say pretty please anyway, that you indicate a desire to stay connected through email, because there's going to be email updates. And so let's journey together, right? I don't know how it's going to reveal, but let's journey together is the job. And then the way in which we really need your help is tell everybody, right? There are 530,000 residents in Tucson. Well, let's take out those that can't read because they're like under 4. So that's a whole lot of Tucsonians. And let's go as far and wide as we can to encourage and compel and inspire and excite our friends, neighbors, our colleagues, our peers, our strangers in the grocery store. Let's just encourage them all to participate and complete the survey. There's nothing perfect about the survey. It was the best attempt, right, to say what are the broad sort of sensibilities that will be really, really helpful to our elected leaders to have clear about what the community sensibility is about it, right? And so tell your friends and neighbors to sign up for any one of the remaining 6 community engagement sessions. We've got 6 more between now and January 23rd. They can sign up for any of those. We'll complete the survey there, just like we did today, or have them printed out from the city's website and mail it back. Have them completed online from the city's website. Have them call a ward office and get a paper copy in English or Spanish. If technology is a barrier, let's not exclude anybody. The idea is to get as many of these filled out as we possibly can. And let's, if we can hit something that's close to 530,000, good for us, right? And then I'm not sure what date, but there will be a day when there's going to be an ad, a big old ad in the paper. And so we can drive all of our neighbors and friends to fill that out. So that's where we go from here, right? Is we are the first. Thank you. You've been our maiden voyage here. You were the first time that we did this. And so I am feeling a little sense of relief, I will tell you, that we got through it. I also am really moved by the depth of caring, the impeccability and the purity of the questions, because at the end of the day, when communities journey together and sort of make a decision to manage through turbulence to get to something that is a common and shared vision, that's as good as we can get, right? And it ain't easy work. It isn't easy work. And every single one of us as residents, as citizens, as members of the community have a voice and a perspective that needs to be expressed. And it works best if we can share that vision and be motivated by what is common. Otherwise, we devolve into the division, the divisiveness, the screaming that allows no communication to occur at all. And so I believe in you. I believe in the depth of desire out of your elected leaders, because I will tell you, I do this with other communities around the country. I have never seen a community say, yep, give us bridge builders because we want truth tellers. Like, that doesn't happen, right? No one says, yeah, let's be sincere and really ask everyone to tell us what they believe to be important, because it's just easier not to know, right? And then just make your own decisions. And so it says something so powerful and positive. So encourage all of you to just tell everybody, you know, if they give you eye contact, encourage them to fill out the survey. We've essentially got till the end of this month to do it, right? And then the survey results are going to be, everything is transparent. It is what it is, right? There is no right or wrong answer. There is no sort of predetermined conclusion. This is a journey of engagement and collective curiosity so that we can all together see what we all want to see together. And so they will be, you know, that's the regular updates. It's on the website. That's the intention. And so I am so grateful. It is now, 6 minutes. So I apologize for holding you over 6 more minutes. And in the chat, let me give you the last word. This is not prepared, but go into your chat and in one word, make your commitment to the future of Tucson. What is your one word commitment? What are you going to bring to this table? How are you going to make this vision happen? How are you going to help us manage through the challenges? How are we going to insist? How are we going to make sure that we get this right? What are you going to bring? Ryan's bringing justice. Thank you, Ryan. We're counting on you for that. Fortitude. Oh, we're going to, great. Colette's going to hold our city accountable. Hallelujah. Mike, engagement, positivity, organization, localism, collaboration, presente. What is it? Tell me what that means. Can we be present?
Yep, presente.
Presente, which means literally be present. Is that it?
Here, yep.
How gorgeous. Okay. Hospitality, showing up. I love Miranda, Amanda, you're so organized because there's like, you've got a shared chat, but you're so organized, showing up and engaging, thriving, open-mindedness, representative advocacy. Every morning, I encourage you to look in the mirror, remind yourself of the commitment that you've made to your community's future, and show up with it in every interaction, every opportunity throughout the day. And thank you for allowing me to just be a lucky electron around this awesome nucleus that is the core and heart and soul of a really extraordinary community. Thank you, Tucson.